Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. I've assembled for you guys here some of my fixed blade knives, and I think this will probably be my wrap up video for the little knife series that I've been doing, just sharing some things about knives. But I wanted to get into some of the knives that I have, some of the things that I've used these knives for, some of the history. Some of these knives are quite old. Um, Wanted to just share this information because I have used these knives and I have a little bit of knowledge on what's good and what I like about these knives. Do I have a favorite fixed blade knife? Not really. Um, I look at knives like I guess any other tool. There's you need a hammer for a certain thing and you need a wrench for a certain thing, and knives are typically the same. If I have I guess, a more preferred utilitarian size, it'd probably be about a 4 inch or so fixed blade knife, and I have quite a few representations of these here. My very first knife that I ever had is this guy right here. I guess I should probably show it to you in the sheath first. Is a Buck Model 119, and this knife was bought at a garage sale when I was a teenager, and it was absolutely beat to shit. The edge was ruined on it. Somebody looked like somebody beat the back of it with a hammer, and we put this knife to a grinder and we ground an edge back onto it. And actually, to this day, this knife is still fairly decent and fairly sharp. And we skinned many an animal and gutted many an animal with this knife. This was the only fixed blade knife that I had for years, and I've since gotten a replacement for it, just for sentimental reasons, more so than anything else, because I've kind of retired it. But this gets into the two principle. A lot of knives that I have two of the same ones, because if I find one that I like, I'll typically have a second one of that knife just in case one gets lost or would happen to break or anything like that. So that Buck Model 119's been around a while. And neck knives. I know I mentioned neck knives in my other videos. This was my original neck knife right here. And what it is, this is an old charade sharp finger with a scrimshawed handle on it. And I carried this just like this for the longest time. And I typically used it for skinning or field dressing small animals. It was carbon steel. The old charades, when they were made in the United States, were carbon steel blades. I took a little bit to keep them sharp because they get dull on you, but you can hone them up really, really good. And this, with this curved point on here, any skinning knife's going to have some type of curved point on it. If you got a real curved point, that makes it a good skinning knife, and that's what I actually preferred this particular knife for, was skinning. And another knife here that I'm going to show you. This is a Sog that I retrieved from a cash bucket that I got, that I keep out pretty much all the time. This guy's been in a bucket for about 18 months, and this is what a knife looks like after it's been sitting out in a bucket for 18 months. You can see a little bit of mold growing on it there. There's a little bit of might see it, there's a couple of spot rust on the blade, but that's what a knife will look like if you kind of neglect it and mistreat it like I did this one right here. But this knife actually did field dress a deer last year, so it was very handy to have that out in the woods. Another thing, when you're doing a cache bucket out in the woods or someplace, you never want to put anything in there that you don't want to have stolen, because you're leaving it out for the whole world. These seal pups here, these Sog Seal Pups, are have been a fairly decent knife. I've had this knife here again for a long time, and this has actually been really good. This has been an good all-purpose knife. I've cleaned a lot of animals with this knife, and I've skinned a lot of animals with this knife. The only thing I don't like about it is this real fine kind of texturing on the handle here, because when you start field dressing animals, you're going to get fat and blood and gunk in here, and it's kind of a pain to clean. But this has actually been a really functional blade for me. What else do I have here? Mora knives. I've got a whole handful of Mora knives. Got a bit of a love-hate relationship with Mora knives. Some of them I really like, some of them not so much. probably my favorite Mora is this Garberg here. It's not, I guess, the most attractive knife in the world. A bit homely, but it's very functional. This knife has been actually really surprised me on how well that it worked for me. And I do like this leather sheath that it came with too. It's nice because I can just drop the knife in. I don't have to, like the Kydex sheath, sometimes you got to be looking at them to make sure that the knife positively clicks in, where this one you can kind of just drop in and then the flap covers it. So I actually like this this style leather sheath on this right here. Getting into, I guess I don't really call my knives survival knives. Knives for me fall into a couple of different categories. I guess what you would call a survival knife, I guess I call a camp knife, because when you're out surviving in the woods, you're pretty much camping, right? I mean, you're just camping with less gear. So that's what I typically will call a survival style knife, is a camp knife. And then there's knives for field dressing animals. Of course, field dressing animals, blood can be rough on carbon steel, so sometimes stainless steel is better to have if you want a knife more for field dressing animals than doing more camp related chores. This is another knife here I've had for a long time. This is a Gerber Lmf. This is probably one of my first, in fact I think it was my first big camp knife that I bought, and I've actually beat the living heck out of this knife. I even got a couple of nicks in the blade or in the handle here, in that rubber. But this knife here, I like to call this knife a cross between a knife and a hatchet, because it can do a lot of stuff a hatchet can do, and that's why I like it for a camp knife. And this actually rides on my large kind of get home bag that I have, my classic one, the one that I've had the longest. And this knife has seen a lot of use and abuse, and sharpens up fairly decent. The steel's just a little bit soft, but it will sharpen up real good for you. But this here is a real brute of a knife, and I've actually really enjoyed using this knife over the years too, for those camp related tasks. Other large knives, I think a large knife is better for camping in the winter, because you're going to do more wood processing type tasks if you're camping in the winter. And I got two big knives here. This is an SE6 and I got a Rat 7. They're very similar, and both of these are seen use out camping this last winter here, and I do enjoy them. And a lot of these knives, these carbon knives, will have some type of coating on them, and a lot of guys will take the coating off. I don't want to take the whole coating off the knife because it does offer some protection, but I like striking my ferro rod and stuff, so I will typically just take a file and I'll just file off a back portion here so I can use my rod with these knives. And that's, most of my carbon steel knives are like that. This SE is is the same here. I also, when I'm done using my knives, I will typically wipe them down with something, usually either olive oil if I'm going to be using the knife for cooking or something like that. But if it's more of just an outdoor camp knife, I'll just spray a little WD-40 on it, and that works really good. Another thing, a lot of my knife sheaths are going to have some type of a Ranger band or a bike inner tube on them, and that's just to hold different types of accessories, whatever you want on the knife. And like on this one right here, because that Ranger band is larger, or if you have multiple Ranger bands on, like I got on this knife here, I got multiple pieces of Ranger band on here, you can actually take little pouches like this. I did a separate video on this. This is a what I call my mini get home bag. It's a or mini bug out bag. It's a just a little accessory pouch here. These are called Condor eye pouches, and I just keep various different types of I guess survival type stuff in here. But they got that little molly on the back. Here's another one. This one's kind of more geared toward fire and whatnot. You can slip a compass, some fire making stuff, a little bit of medicine, a couple band-aids, that kind of stuff in these. But because these have these straps on the back, these straps will actually, you can thread them through this Ranger band, and that pouch will stay right on your larger fixed blade knife, and it'll fit on anything like this. All you do is you slide that through, snap it in, and this banding here will keep that really tight on there, and you don't have to worry about it. And that way, if you want to add a little more gear to a knife, if it's just all you're carrying, then you got that got that with you. But these larger knives I prefer in the wintertime just because they're so much better for processing wood and that kind of stuff. And now the TV show Survivalist Knives. This is a less shroud knife that I got quite a few years ago, and I have actually beat the living hell out of this knife. And everything that came with this knife, the sheath, all the little accessories and stuff, I broke everything that came with this knife, but I never broke the knife. So I'm kind of actually pretty happy with this. This knife has taken a lot of abuse, and even though the accessories and the sheath and stuff didn't last, the knife did last, and I guess that's the most important thing when you're buying a knife like that. And the old Grylls knife. Now, Grylls gets a lot of crap, but this knife was actually a bit of a first generation of those when they first came out. And again, it's the same thing like the less shroud knife. I did break some of the stuff on this, but I never broke the knife. The knife works still pretty good. Really soft steel though. This actually will dull up fairly quickly, but it actually came with a small, on the back of the sheath, probably can't see it in there, but in the back of the sheath there's a little bit of a diamond hone in there, so you can actually hone this back up pretty quickly. But it's a good thing that that's on there because this knife does dull fairly quickly if you're using it hard. Old butcher knives. I live in a farming area. Old farms are plentiful around me, and old butcher knives can be used for utilitarian purposes too. So this knife here, I've actually struck a rod with this knife quite a few times, and this is just an old butcher knife that I picked up at a garage sale somewhere. Still good steel, you can still sharpen it up, so don't discount old knives like this. And sometimes you even find a little gem like this. This is a kind of an old Kephart style knife. It's got that kind of spear point type blade on it. It's not really heavy enough to do any I don't know what you would call it, any real heavy camp work, but as a food prep knife or something, this is actually really, really cool. I always thought this was kind of a neat knife, so that's why I got it here in my group. But and then the 3-ish, 3.5, 4-inch size knives. These are sort of my workhorses. These get a lot of use for different things. Again, they're carbon steel, so you can sharpen them up pretty good. Coatings on knives. This is an Ontario coating. It didn't last very long, and the SE coating actually lasts a little bit longer, I think, except where I filed the edge off. A lot of guys probably think I'm crazy for filing off a knife like that, but my tools serve me. It's not the other way around. So if I see a way that a knife or another tool can benefit me, or can be improved upon by me, I just go ahead and do it. I don't worry about like the collector value or anything on these knives. Don't really have any defensive knives, what you would call a defensive knife or whatever, except this guy right here. And this is a old Gerber Guardian backup. When I was a teenager, there was a TV miniseries called On the Wings of Eagles, where they got some guys out of Iran when the revolution took place in the 70s, an old movie with Burt Lancaster. And Burt Lancaster gave all of his guys one of these knives in that movie, and that's why I went and bought this knife. But as years went by, this has actually been a really good knife. I've used this knife for different things, throwing it little packs when I went traveling or whatever, so I had just a little real sharp, I guess, defensive style knife with me. And it's got a really, this is back probably in the 90s when I got this knife, but the plastic sheath on here is held up. It's been really good. It's got a couple of retention slides on the side here, and got a nice clip to clip it on a belt or whatever. But yeah, this was probably my only really defensive knife that I have. And then I got a couple larger knives here too. This one's this is an old, I guess this is a like a K-bar style knife. It's not an actual K-bar, but it's a K-bar style. And I've actually did a video on how I waterproof this handle on this particular knife. And this guy's actually been really good out in the woods. Again, with the larger fixed blade knives, it's nice in the winter, early spring for wood processing and that kind of stuff. So that makes that knife fairly good for that type of stuff too. And then, you got your real big bruiser knives. I don't have my machete in here, but I always carry a machete in my truck, and this is sort of a machete-ish type heavy knife too. Again, this falls into the hatchet slash knife category. This is actually really good for chopping and doing that kind of type of wood processing. And this is an Ontario RTAC. And again, I've got this modified with some banding and stuff on it if I want to carry anything with this knife, because it is so large. I don't really actually got a bit of a paracord on the back, so I can like throw it on my back like a kind of like a rifle sling. It just makes it easier to carry. The old buck mesas, they're one of my favorite knives. I don't think they make these anymore. They're kind of one of my favorite knives for field dressing animals too, because they got this kind of hollow grind on it here. These can be honed really sharp. They're really good for field dressing animals. Again, they got a decent sheath on them. I modify some of my knives to hold ferro rods. And then, of course, my neck knives. If you're going to have a neck knife, you're going to want to have some type of breakaway clip on it, and that's what I got on these here, breakaway clips. I got different style, different types of neck knives here, but as I progress with the neck knives, you should have some type of breakaway clip on that. And then my chest carry, and this is one of my favorite ways of carrying. I showed this in one of my other videos, carrying knives on rifle slings across the front of your chest. Again, these are sort of that 3 to 4 inch length that I like. But I just thought I'd do this video here, go over some of these knives. It touches base on some of this, some of the things that I use these knives for, and I thought it would help as far as folks that are getting into preparedness, or they're trying to select some knives to use if there's some type of situation where they might have to be on their own a little bit in the woods. Kind of give you my 2 cents on some of this stuff. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. Hope you enjoyed looking at some of my knives here. I appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys got a little information, a little entertainment here out of my experiences with these blades. And you guys have a good day.